All right, we are live. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. So it was nice doing this with you and meeting you. So
Yeah. Yeah, have you ever done anything like this?
yeah, a few times. I got buddies that we've done this a few times where we just 2 3 hour just rambling on about every subject on the news and social issues, stuff like that. So
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, so the first topic I think we're going to do is trans related topics. Before we, I kind of want to have a focus on minors when it comes to trans stuff. But before doing that, I'm just curious if you have any stances on adult trans people as far as the legality of things go.
not really. Living up here in Seattle, we certainly have a lot more trans, I think, than your average person. And I've worked with quite a few, and um, it's what it is. I will say, is maybe kind of a anecdote or whatever, is that I've worked with a 6 foot tall guy with or 6 foot tall person with you know uh 5 o'clock shadow and more body hair than myself and all that kind of stuff. And I find myself from time to time, I'm treating everybody with respect and using the right pronouns, except once a month I may slip out and say sir. And
Mm.
if I do that, once a month, for a couple months, I might be getting on the edge of some sort of harassment and might be fearing my job. And it's for that, I think we may have gone a little far. I mean,
Mm.
I always call everybody sir and ma'am. It's been a thing I've done since Christian school when I was growing up, and I grew up down south, and so sir and ma'am's kind of my thing. And yeah, so I mean that's really the only thing, is that it's I my kids go to school, and they have to use pronouns or they're going to get in trouble. And it's the same thing with people at work, and it's
Mm.
when again you work with these people every day, but once a month you let something slip out, and it's does it become harassment, and am I going to lose my job because of something like that? And so for that, I think we society's maybe gone a little too far.
Gotcha. And so, as far as the legal side of it, maybe somebody shouldn't be able to be fired for a mistake like that, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, it's I know it's hard, but it's like I've worked with people who are not exactly passing, as you might say, and so it's just popping off the wrong pronoun will potentially like lead to your termination at work because they didn't shave enough, whatever. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, but anybody that's 18, you'd say 18 or older, any surgery's fine. Like you don't want to put any stop to what people can do as
No,
adults.
no, it's fine. People can do whatever they want. It's I we I think we came from a world where sexual dysphoria and stuff like that we may not encourage people who are having you know uh certain thoughts and issues to just start lopping off genitalia. I think that
Mm.
it's I think stuff like that should definitely be along the lines of consulting a doctor and mental health and all that kind of stuff before treating you know cutting off a penis like a tattoo. I think it's
Mm.
I mean, I'm again, I know a lot of people up here. I go to raves. I meet trans people all the time. They're I'm fine with people being however they want to be, but
Yeah.
I still think that gender dysphoria and things like that may be a real mental health issue that we need to look at more than just embrace. And if you feel like you're this gender tomorrow, well, everybody's going to clap for you, and you're going to get a big thumbs up from your psychiatrist, which you know
Mm-hmm.
so I guess that's what.
Gotcha. For sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because I'm okay. Anybody can have their thoughts and they can be different than mine. I just like to make sure because when I start talking about trans minors, I think a lot of people instantly will think, "Oh, okay, I've heard 5 minutes. This guy is anti-trans," and that's not the case. I lean very libertarian. I'm very everybody do what they want to do, but I think it's very important to protect children, and when it comes to what people do as adults, it's just way different for me than when it comes to minors. So I wanted to like to see where you were at because some people will say like, oh, okay, even adults because it's a mental illness, they shouldn't be able to do it, and different laws that would go into that. So with minors, here's an interesting thing. Um, how do you feel about our ages that we have for what we call minors? Like, if somebody wanted to say adults started at 20 or adults started at 16, do you have any thoughts? Have you looked into like brain development and that kind of thing for when we should call humans adults?
I mean, it's hard to say. Is a lot of I know a lot of people that are 25 that might as well be 16, and and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. So it's there is some case by case stuff. So we would have to come up with some solid number for everybody to achieve to kind of call them an adult. And I'm good with 18. I wouldn't go as low as 16 for things like you know uh, yeah, I don't know if I'd even be okay with a 16-year-old buying alcohol, even though I'm certainly sure most have them by then. But you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'd be good with 18 as far as that goes. It seems like a good solid number for a lot of the things we do. Whether it's joining the military or I used to be smoking cigarettes at 18. Seeing an R-rated movie, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay. So then I think it's probably clear that we both would say no top surgery at something like 16. Like what about 17? Would you say 18 for something like removing breasts, or do you think it's something like how most things it's 18, but alcohol's 21? Would something like surgically having part of your body removed be a pushback like the alcohol age?
I mean, I'd go with 18 just across the board. I mean, even
Okay.
for stuff like alcohol. I mean, you
Mm.
need to pick an age. I mean, if we're waiting for 21 for everything, we're waiting for 18 for everything. It's somebody's got to
Mm-hmm.
be able to have their rights given to them to make that choice, and not I think it's a stepping stone to tobacco at one thing and then alcohol at another, or joining the military but you got to wait 3 years to drink. I mean, there's some silly stuff in there. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be at 18 for top surgery, and just because it's same thing with like a tattoo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people I talk to seem to lean towards like around 16 getting slightly different privileges, like tattoos. I personally think they should have to wait till 18 for a tattoo as well. Um, One thing that's interesting though, I feel comfortable with the driver's license at 16. Do you think
Yeah.
that should be pushed to 18 just to have that strict limit, or is driving a different in your mind?
Well, the one caveat I might have with that is that when a 16-year-old, how legally liable are they for causing an accident? Do we allow them to get on the road with 3 tons of steel, and if they get into a trouble, then it's their parents' fault. I'd like across the board giving people legal rights, and so um, you know people need a lot of people work at 16 or 14 or whatever like that, and so I can definitely understand driving. I mean, I don't know, it's kind of one of those weird things where you can allow a 16-year-old to drive but not sort of be legally liable for you know causing death on the road. So
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to push back on the surgery thing a little bit, even though I'm kind of pushing against my own stance, because I heard a good argument that I I just view as the best argument. Um, if somebody were to get, let's say, in a car wreck and their face got disformed, they they're just like I don't know, very bad car wreck, a lot of like just messed up face stuff, and basically let's say the face kind of heals and the person's fine. Surgery will not make their health improve at all. But somebody could do a surgery to change their deformed face to be more like what they want it to be. Um, how would you view that differently if somebody wanted to remove their breast tissue and have that be what they want it to be versus somebody wanting to do surgery to make their nose or whatever happened to a person that had deformed face go back to having their face be more like it was?
I mean, I don't know. I have, a different issue of lopping off breasts than I probably would have some sort of plastic surgery. I got into a fight when I was 14 years old and had a big slice on my forehead, and I actually went back to the doctor, I think, twice to have this large scar minimized. So
Mm.
uh, I don't know. I mean, it was kind of an accident, and I definitely have sympathy for somebody who gets into a car accident, and then we're trying to minimize potential long term scarring or I can't equate somebody choosing to lop off their breasts as plastic surgery that is meant to, heal from an accident or something to that effect. I'm not a big fan
Mm.
of like getting a 16-year-old getting a nose job. So it'd be along the same thing. And,
Yeah.
I definitely have bias against, uh, you know, girls lopping off their breasts. I got a couple daughters myself, and I didn't think that this would be something I'd have to contend with, but in this,
Right.
in this world, I want to make sure my girls get to 18 before they start making some sort of permanent decisions and lopping off body parts because they feel like something tomorrow. It's
Yeah.
um, I hate you know I kind of look at a lot of the ideas about like sexual dysmorphia, and really just people identifying as trans is somewhat of a religious type of thing where it's um, you know I'm a bit of an atheist myself, but I always thought it was funny how somebody can be a Christian tomorrow, and then the next day after that they can be a Muslim, and the next day after that they can be a Hindu, and then they can go back to Christian, and it can be a day by day thing just based how they feel in the morning, and yet they're supposed to
Mm.
be given respect and legal protections and all this kind of stuff for these individual certain beliefs that they have that they literally came up with yesterday. And so
Mm.
when I mean I that's why I'm not really for this surgery just right away and all that kind of stuff, because I think something like that is needs some psychiatric help, maybe much like people who change religions on the daily.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and there's something to the fact that all the hormones and the process of going through puberty. I think it's clear that w- we don't call people adults in the middle of puberty because the thinking isn't quite as clear. And so yeah, and I'd compare it to something like getting a boob job or something. Like if we're gonna let somebody remove them, we have to let somebody of the same age make them bigger because they
Sure.
feel like they're gonna get made fun of for having, yeah. And I'm with you on both of those cases that they shouldn't be done. I just think it's always best to come up with the best steel man for any argument and figure out if there's any bias there that should be removed. And the only thing I come up with when it comes to the car wreck idea is that it's restoring, where removing breasts isn't restoring anything. But if somebody gets in a car wreck, you're restoring. Um, but then again, if somebody is born with something that's different than the average of that, whatever that person has, like if somebody's born with like a third ear, um, then it wouldn't be restored. Removing one of those ears wouldn't be restoring to that person's restoration. It would be just almost restoring to the average of that type of person.
Yeah, no, and
So
and I I probably could support that. I mean, it's kids getting, kids go to school. It's a brutal world. You don't want to send your kid to public school with a third ear for probably too terribly long. It's going to hurt that kid's self-esteem, how he feels about himself, all through, all through childhood and stuff like that. And so, it's, yeah, I would want to do stuff that kids, doesn't make, a kid feel ashamed about himself on the daily, which is just going to hurt his whole prospects for his whole adult life, and everything like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty interesting. And yeah. So I don't know if you have any differences when it comes to like hormone type stuff or anything. I say that basically when it's a minor, no puberty blockers. I don't know much about hormones as far as like somebody taking testosterone, but it seems like it would probably be best not to at that age. But
Yeah, no, there are a few reasons why you would want to give a person puberty blockers or a child puberty blockers, and they are not for reasons that are trans, I believe.
hmm
I've got a relative who has a messed up pituitary gland. 2/3 of the function of the pituitary gland doesn't work, and as a child went into puberty at the age of like 7. As far as that goes, and when doing that kind of thing, it was they the parents chose to give their children puberty blockers so that this child would be taller than 4'10" as a male, and
hmm
certain things like that just to delay puberty, because again it was just an oddball type of thing, where it was just pituitary gland was just sending the body into kind of weird reactions, and I mean, we're talking like drop testicles and pubic hair and all that kind of stuff at like 7. Again, it's
Yeah.
so I do know about some very rare instances and stuff like that, but it's not anything that I would, again, who's making the choice here, as far as that, when we talk about like being able to choose to drink or get a tattoo or all these kind of things, we're not giving children right out of the womb legal permissions and culpability for all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
when putting a child on puberty blockers, it's like, I mean, when I was 13, I'm sure I wanted a whole bunch of tattoos, and, I'd have to talk my parents into doing something like that. Or they might have to encourage me to do something like that. And, again, I'd be full stop on tattoos, on puberty blockers, on all these kinds of things, if we're talking about, choice and all that kind of stuff for somebody as
hmm
young as 8 or 13 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and the puberty blockers when needed, I think it fits into that category of the restoration of our species. Like this is not supposed to happen here, but there's a malfunction, so we're fixing it. And then that's a good point you make that it's not letting the child decide. It's um, parent slash doctor doing the best thing for that member of the species. So yeah. Um, okay, so now we're going to move into a topic that I think we disagree on, if I remember correctly, but I think it's very connected to this, and I'm hoping I can sway you on this. But circumcision. Can you
Sure.
remind me of your stance on circumcision?
It's I support circumcision for I guess myself and family members, simply because it is societal normal. I know, many adult men that I've talked to who have not had a circumcision, and um, rarely do I hear that, they're happy about it. They have pride in it. It's and I've heard quite a few that it's actually a bit of shame for them. And certainly on the other hand, girls, that their partners that they're choosing to be with and stuff like that are similarly icked out or whatever by an uncircumcised guy. So I mean, and this is maybe not a, I mean, this is obviously not a great reason to go get it done, but at the same time,
Mm,
it's a little bit like that third ear,
mm,
it's, if we want these kids to, we want kids or men or people to feel good about themselves, and for some crazy reason we decided to start, given men circumcisions, and for a lot of men, it's they've, whether they've seen it on other people or porn or whatever, it seems seemingly is a little bit more normalized for that, and so much so that you know they people feel maybe more normal with it, and women, feel it's a more normal thing or whatever. And this is honestly the only reason why I support it, because it's about how people feel about themselves. And I want people to be successful. I want people to feel accepted and normal in their own skin or whatever. And so it might be a better world if we didn't have it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just, yeah. So that's where I'm at on it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm with you that it's normalized. People want to do what's normal. Um, but yeah, I think we could like add in different things that would like for example with this what we're talking about with the trans stuff. Like if that becomes normalized, that doesn't mean that that's something that we think should happen, or even like if people got like tribal face tattoos or something. I think something like that, if it became normalized, we still might want to fight for the rights for somebody to not have something chosen for them. That's kind of my biggest concern when it comes to kids. And so yeah, I would like obviously like a tattoo is less of a deal than removing breasts, probably, aside from a face tattoo or something. And then like the circumcision might be less of a big deal as well. Um, but these are like permanent changes to bodies of people that aren't adults. So let's look at female ones then. Okay, so I don't know if you're familiar with female circumcisions,
Yes,
but
I am. It is, yeah. No, I've, Ion Hersey Ali was a
mhm.
big person I used to listen to, and so I'm very well aware of FGM, and
Okay.
the Islamic world's doing that, and I would make the argument there that it's different because with FGM, seemingly it seems like it's about causing these people pain, and
Mhm.
to so that they refrain from sex and all that kind of stuff. Where
Well, that's actually my understanding of why it started in the U.S. For male circumcision was to try to get boys to not masturbate. Um, that's from what I understand from the history of it, is to make it more painful and etc. But real quick, so there's a couple different levels of the female one. So in some cases, it's a removal of the clitoris, and in some cases, it's just a removal of labia, and in some cases, it's there's like a weird like almost signature type scarring thing that they do, and so there's different levels of it. So I wouldn't think it would be fair to compare it to the clitoris removal because then we'd be talking about with male circumcision, there can still be an orgasm, but with female, with the clitoris removal, there couldn't. But with just like a labia removal, especially because you're talking about norms and what people like or whatever, I don't remember how many it is a year, but it's something like maybe 30,000 or labiaplasties that happen in the U.S. And this is with adults, but it's with people wanting their genitals to look better from what they think the societal norms are, and they're cutting themselves up to get this better look. And so, what would your thought be if in the U.S. people wanted to do that part? They don't want to make anything painful. They're not removing a clitoris. They're just essentially doing the same thing as the male one, just making this norm of if you have extra skin for labia, you just get that removed.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say I'd be against it. Again, it's kind of like in a different world, I'd be against male circumcision. But as far as I can tell, there's not really pain, associated with it. And I hadn't heard about doing a circumcision to, curb masturbation or anything like that. So, I was
Mm.
under the assumption that, male circumcision, it came from a religious, practice, and now it's become a, societal norm, but it's not not about pain or anything at all like that. And I guess, I'm maybe to if we were, in 100 years in the future or in a different world where 90% of women chopped off their breasts, I'm sure you'd have a lot of people wanting to do that as a societal norm, even though, in this world or whatever, I might be appalled by it. It might become a societal norm where, people do this kind of thing. And then I'd probably be, as a father of girls, I'd probably be like, she's going to do it at some point anyway. It feels, it makes her feel normal and all that kind of stuff. And as much as I want to say I wouldn't support it, if that thing became a societal norm, it'd be hard. It'd be a lot harder for me to push back on, because again,
Yeah.
I want people to be happy with themselves and to grow up and to be successful, adults and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that is, fitting in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean that is a good point. I don't know. I don't personally feel that way, but I don't know how I would feel in that situation. It's kind of like I'm very anti new technology as far as people being on devices, seeing like toddlers in shopping carts just holding tablets, and I want my 8-year-old daughter to not have a cell phone until she's 18 or moved out of the house. But because of the societal norms, this thing that I'm very morally against, I know that once her all her friends have cell phones, and once she's like, I don't know, 15 or something like that, I'm probably gonna give in, and I don't want her to be the only kid not doing this thing, even though I'm against it. So I'm with you there. It's, when it comes to mutilating a body, though, it's a little different. But you brought something up that makes me curious. So if it gets to the point where, let's say in 2030 or 2040, in the U.S., only 40% of newborn baby boys are getting circumcisions, and so it's less than 50% are getting them, so more than 50% are uncircumcised. Would you say at that point that it becomes not the norm, that your stance would be to talk against it?
Um, yes, I would say that I wouldn't broadly use 40, 50% though. I would look at, are we talking about specific demographics?
Okay.
I mean, if it's, if you got a white kid that is, and it's, 80% of them are getting circumcision, seemingly this white kid is gonna more likely have white partners or whatever, versus somebody who's Arabic or something like that. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but it's I would kind of look at, like, what a subgroup they might be in. If it's normalized in that. I mean, I know that's maybe it sounds a little odd, because we're talking about, if people are different and people grow up in different types of cultures and stuff like that, even within the United States. So, I mean, I know plenty of people that seemingly are in a whole different culture, that live right next door. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I'd be more for, if we start getting down to that 40, 50%, for, that kid's particular demographic that he fits into, no, that, I guess that's just, that would be my one caveat of that. But, as the numbers go down, if it is, truly, down to, 40% or 30% and all that kind of stuff. And it's not it turns out that, because it's an elective surgery of sorts, that, only wealthier people get circumcisions versus the poor people get circumcisions. That might be a difference there that I might also look at, where, if having a circumcision is a symbol of higher status or something silly like that. So, I mean, again, it's,
Gotcha.
yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah.
I understand that, this is, it's a bit of an elective surgery, and we're doing it to kids without consent,
Mhm.
technically. And so, I do understand the pushback there. Again, I don't have a great reason to get it, other than I'm wanting this kid to fit in, and, what kind of society he's going to fit into and how he's going to feel about himself. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and these kind of things are just worth looking into. You've sparked ideas that have made me think about it slightly differently as well. I Yeah, but okay, let's hop over. So I wasn't going to discuss abortion just because I think we agree enough that there wouldn't be too much room for conversation. But since we are just dabbling in little topics here and there, might as well put a few minutes into abortion. Um, how, Go ahead and give me your thoughts on abortion, and then I'll break it down.
Sure. Well, it's not the most popular position, because um, I am, pro-choice. I think that, people should be able to choose this stuff, but I think there should be a limit. And, I certainly don't believe that we should be, doing it at 7 months or 6 months, and, for cases of rape and, just whatever, I would like, the idea that we are, or, if you are having sex and, there might be a small chance of getting pregnant, I would think that we should make, that they would want it to be their first priority to get into that doctor the next day or the day after that, or, just as soon as possible to make this, super hard decision to do something like that. So, I would like to put it at, about 15 weeks. Another thing, simply because, there are some, defects, abnormalities, things like that that aren't quite detected. And then, I, another unpopular thing is that, if you found out your kid was, had Down syndrome, and it was, I think we all know that, if you have a child with Down syndrome, that you're probably going to be taking care of this person for 50, 60 years, until this person
Mm-hmm.
dies. And, I, nobody seems happier than a Downs kid, but then at the same time, are they achieving, you know, work? Are they achieving, love in their life? Are they doing all these types of things? And so between the burden of the parent and, how, developed they are or whatever, I would, I'm okay with, choosing to abort a Downs kid or some kid
Mm-hmm.
with a, another type of, severe deformity where, you know, uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough one because, I hate having to make such an exception, but it's the reality of it where, birth defects do happen. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know my life would be incredibly, so much harder if I had to take care of a Downs kid for the rest of my life, and they had to live with me, and you know all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's selfish, but that's
Well, and not only that, one of the biggest fears. So, like, I don't know about you as a parent or how old your kids are, but my youngest is 8 right now, and I didn't realize this until having a kid. But the second you have a kid, like 90% of your thoughts become, how do I keep this kid alive and protect this kid from any harms? And the kid just becomes your world. And so the idea that when you're gone, even though your kid's going to be a lot older and be able to take care of themselves, if you have, like a Downs kid, um, then you're just knowing that when you leave this world, you're going to be leaving this child behind. That won't be a child anymore, but like, so, if somebody dies at 80 and their kid's 60, but is going to need to be taken care of by somebody else because they have Downs, I think your entire life you have to be taken care of. It's kind of a sad idea that like you're leaving this person behind that can't take care of themselves. So
yeah.
yeah. Okay. So I want to discuss a bunch of what you just said, but one thing I forgot to ask that I like to ask when I talk about the topic of abortion is getting values on humans in general. And so, without looking at that, like let's just say right now, in Canada, some 25-year-old man dies. What's this random stranger you don't know? What is it about humans that you value? So what bothers you that this 25-year-old guy just died randomly?
Well, I mean, it's whatever how he's just enjoying life. I mean, if he has a full life, if he's finding some sort of success with his hobbies or his work, or hopefully he's finding love. Finding love, I think, is probably one of my big things for like the whole human condition. And this is, I really want these people to to find a good love. And some of that I think we might tie into even like the circumcision thing, or if 90% of women were chopping off their breasts, it's people got to feel good about themselves and accepted and all that kind of stuff, to to start getting into a position where they can find love and be loved, and love somebody themselves. So that's probably what I most appreciate about that 25-year-old who who dies, is that that's cut off for him at that point. So,
Yeah. Like he had more to do and experiences that could have been good in life.
sure.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I think it's interesting. We have these societal norms on thoughts. Uh, that it's hard to break away from. And I think both of us are the type that will just be honest about anything we're talking about, and we might say outrageous things. But whenever I think about this topic of abortion and think about things like, a fetus having Down syndrome or whatever, is when you think back to, like, I don't know, thousands of years ago, tribes on the go, where if somebody gave birth to a child that was deformed or whatever, they would probably just do away with it. They in a society where they couldn't take care of it. So I'm just curious about your levels of when there are values. So if we can abort somebody with Downs, would you say that even if for some reason it wasn't detected until like a day before birth, where normally if there was no issue like that, you would say that's too far into a pregnancy to abort. But for somebody with Downs, would you say like the day before birth is fine?
No, I mean, and a lot of that is that I'm taking for granted that we have the science that we can detect something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
um, it's certainly like having an abortion at 9 months is tears at my heartstrings a little bit more so than doing it at 1 month or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we should be killing kids that are one day before they're out of the womb. I mean, it's and that is simply because of science. If we were in a different world where we couldn't detect something like that, then I would be we're going to do our best to take care of this individual and to give them proper the medical care that they need and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I'm not okay with just chucking the deformed kid over the cliff or something like that. But
Gotcha.
yeah,
Um,
it's a tough conversation. I
yeah.
mean, I get what you're saying. Where one of the things, I am pro-choice, but I mean, just I do also consider this kind of like murder. I mean, I know it's
Mm-hmm.
we're splitting hairs or whatever, and but I do look at once conception happens, that we are talking about a life form that is going to be a human. And I don't really care too much about the classifications. I don't really care too much about heartbeats or brain activity or pain or anything like that. I mean, we are getting rid of a human, and what, or a developing human, however I
Gotcha.
kind of say it.
Okay, so in like a hypothetical world where there was just an endless amount of amazing married couples that couldn't have children that want to adopt, let's just say we like an endless amount, would in that situation, would you think that once conception happens, that there should be no abortions because those all of those humans once they're born could go to loving families?
Um, I don't think so. I don't think I'd put that. I wouldn't force somebody to go through childbirth in order to just fulfill a another couple's desire to have a kid. And certainly in this world we don't have this type of you know endless supply of people who want to be parents who, there's not
Yeah.
an incredible line to just start adopting, young kids and stuff like that. So I wouldn't force anybody to, carry a kid, to put them up for adoption, essentially. Unless we are talking about, after those 15 weeks or, whatever deadline I've kind of set on having an abortion in the first place. I mean, if you want to, give up your kid, that's up to you type of thing. But
Gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't sure because you made a comment about like not necessarily caring about heartbeats and this and that, and that it's we're talking about humans, and so I wasn't sure if you valued the fertilized egg, but at the same time in the real world, you just wouldn't want unfit parents that don't want the child to have it. So I wasn't sure with that hypothetical if you, with valuing the fertilized egg, would if you knew that the outcome for the child would be good, that you would support it. So what is your cutoff then? Is it something like viability during pregnancy, or would it be something more like consciousness?
um, well, honestly, it's for me, it's more about, as soon as a woman, honestly, or a girl or whatever, gets into the situation where they might have a kid or they might become pregnant. I mean, whether we're talking about a rape, whether we're talking about a one night stand, something to that effect. I mean, I would, if I had a, if I was able to carry children and I had unprotected sex where there was a potential, I would, you know, in my own fantasy, make it priority number one to, to have that abortion, to get rid of, that kid, or to find out if I am pregnant, and so that would be, it's a tough topic, obviously, but I want to make this priority number one because, again, while I am pro-choice, I do look at it as, taking away, getting rid of, killing a, human in development, or however you want to put it. So,
Mm,
which is something that is kind of morally, you know, uh, uncouth or whatever you want to call it. It's not a great thing to just willy nilly on the abortion thing. And
yeah.
accidents happen. Obviously rape happens. Lots of bad stuff happens. But if we're going to allow for something like that, there needs to be some sort of compromise with the people who want to just be able to do it whenever, to people in our society who look at it the same way as I do, as far as it being killing a thing, but that at the same time are just flat no killing of any kind, and so this is,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's more of a moral thing with me, and it's I've made the compromise that, hey, people are going to have abortions, or we need abortions in this society, or 16-year-olds who are having unprotected sex, to you know it's going to ruin their life pretty much to have a kid instead of college, or to
Yeah.
have to be forced to find daycare while you're making minimum wage. I mean, it's a thing that's going to impact their whole life. I mean, they may never come out of any sort of poverty or anything like that if put into that position. It's
Yeah. Gotcha, gotcha. Real quick, somebody in the comments is asking. So she has autism, and she's wondering if we think that somebody should be able to abort based on the knowledge that the fetus will have autism. What are your thoughts on that?
um I have some smart ass friends, I will tell you what, that are programmers making 200, $300,000 a year, and they are very on the spectrum. And
Mm,
I will say this, that I sometimes am jealous of their ability to focus down on one subject and work and all that kind of stuff, and to um, be successful in life. And so I don't look at autism. I mean, there are people who my brother-in-law, he used to take care of incredibly autistic kids, and we're talking nonverbal, where kids who are eating or throwing feces. Just, I mean, that type of stuff is next level. And
mm-hmm.
for something like that, I might be, if we could detect that type of thing early on, maybe that's in the same realm of having a Downs kid, simply because of the lifelong needed care. But most of my
Yeah.
pals who are on the spectrum or autistic. I mean, they're still finding, a lot of success in life and all that kind of stuff. So that would be where I would go with that. I wouldn't say that autism, most cases of the autism that I see are not so prohibitive of finding love or finding, you know, a lot of things in life. So I just know too many successful people that are super on the
Hmm.
spectrum. So
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it doesn't really exactly come down to the label. It comes down to the knowledge that if born, this person will be need to be taken care of their entire lives. So with something like Down syndrome, it would be every single one of them. Where with something like autism, it's such a broad umbrella spectrum that maybe 3% of autistic people are so far on one end that it would be like the Down syndrome thing where they would have to be taken care of their whole lives. But the other 97% will function perfectly fine, be able to get jobs and live on their own. And so, yeah, maybe it doesn't matter what the label is. It just matters of detection of what their life would be like.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's I'm fine with people, aborting perfectly healthy kids, obviously up till 12 or 15 weeks. So, I'm for all of it as far as that goes. But, um, it, the autism thing is not something that I would equate with many birth defects, simply because, again, I just know too many people who are really successful in life, you know, much more successful than myself, even as far as, career and money and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
I couldn't.
Um, Gotcha. Well, okay. So considering, okay, so we're both in favor of abortion, at very least within the first few weeks, or let's just say within the first week, no matter what, we both are totally fine with a zygote being aborted. If we could detect various different things in that first week, like gender or eye color or whatever, would you have anything against somebody that wanted a baby and within that first week they get pregnant and they're like, okay, well, we're not going to announce it yet because we don't know if we want this one. They find out, okay, it's a boy, we don't want it, we wanted a girl. And does the reason matter if it's within a window that we don't care about?
Um, Again, I don't know necessarily that there's a um, such a reason. I mean, it's like having a kid. I've got four myself, and I hear you've got a kid, and so it's a lot of work. It is a lifestyle change from not having kids. So even if you are a super billionaire, with nannies and everything like that, you still may understand that it is, it imposes on your life to a degree. It changes your life having a kid. And so, I'm, if any reason is okay, I'm fine with, the billionaire who it would have the least impediment on their life to have an abortion, because there is still quite a bit of, you know, it does a lot to you. It changes your
Hmm.
life. So it's, some people just may not want that. Some people are just too selfish or whatever. I mean, and they can do whatever they want with their life, and that sort of reason or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, I find all this stuff pretty fascinating. It's definitely a complicated mess, but it's important as a society to figure it out because it affects a lot of people's lives. Like in one sense, we'll look at this viable unborn person and say, okay, this person can suffer. This is a human. If it was preborn, it would be exactly what it is inside this person, and and then other people are devastated by the idea of not being able to abort it because they're going to have to give birth to it, and people can die in childbirth. So it's definitely nature has given us one of the most complicated, tough topics to handle.
Yeah, no, I always thought the best solution for this would be would somehow we were programmed with a on off switch. Like, I can turn on the switch to get pregnant,
Oh,
versus,
right, yeah, that'd be
wouldn't that be
incredible.
the nice thing where it was all just total choice and, I'm ready and all that kind of stuff versus, just whenever it happens and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. Yep, that would be incredible. Yeah, or just yeah, yeah. And maybe there will be something like that in the future. And maybe, like, I've heard a lot of talk about like growing babies in labs and stuff like that, which is such a scary idea because we learn new things, we try new things, and then we discover, oh, the more natural way is better. We create things like formula, and then and then after enough people suffer from it, we go like, oh, okay, it turns out that breast milk is important for development, and then. I'm sure if growing babies in labs instead of in people, we'll discover that, oh, okay, this part of the human was very important for the bonding for a mother and all this stuff. And
yeah.
yeah, I'm very curious to see where technology takes all this. um, but yeah,
Yeah, no, I could see a world where we found something better than breast milk. As crazy as that is,
yeah,
it could happen. And at that point, it'd probably be a better choice to go that route. So I don't know.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, all right. Well, we got enough time to maybe throw in one more topic. Is there anything on your mind that's been like a big topic you've been discussing with friends lately, or even a small topic that just it like comes to you a lot?
I talk a lot about foreign interactions, policy, trade, that kind of stuff. That's you know something that I generally chat with friends out on the more on the daily basis. These societal things, choices about abortion or trans or anything like that. I mean, it doesn't seem for me like it's a topic that changes much, that evolves much. There's not a lot of new information coming out about. So,
Mm-hmm.
these types of my stances on it have been pretty similar for a long time. I will say that my abortion stance has changed uh, a bit since I've started having kids, and so it was. If you asked me when I was 22, I would have been, willy nilly, 6 months, whatever doesn't bother me. It just, people do what they want to do, leave me out of it, type of thing. Where now I'm like, it's probably not a great thing because if it becomes the norm that people are waiting till they're 6 months or something like that. Now I have kids that are understanding these as a norm versus and I maybe don't want them to. I don't think abortion's a great thing to do, but
Mm-hmm.
and I want a world where kids are being grown up and understanding these are hard choices and they're not things that we should be looking at so callously, so
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, okay. This might be a big topic to bring up for a last little bit. I mean, I don't know if you have like 15 or 20 minutes.
yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
curious to hear your thoughts on this because it's a topic I want to know more about, but it's such a big topic that I definitely don't have a strong stance on. But let's talk about immigration for a sec. Just go ahead and give me your thoughts on what's wrong with what it is now, and also what you think it should be.
Well, my problem with just unfettered migration is that prices of everything are going way up, and so I think it's I look at some parts like super simple is like if we had 10% less people here in the United States, rents would be affected quite a bit by that. Rents would start coming back down to they're not going to be back to my father's time, but things are getting too expensive, and I think that I think just about every single job should be a living wage. I mean, I'm of that way. I think if you're 18 years old, you don't have an opportunity to stay at home. You're walking out of the house with nothing, and you got to get a job. That job should pay for the worst little studio apartment, within 10 miles from your job or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Immigration has changed that, and I mean, a lot of things have changed that. Dual income households has changed that since the 70s, where, it pushes prices up and up. And so, I'm not for just unfettered migration. I mean, there's, I, you know, I would love if everything was just, uh, you know, EB-5s, which are, you come here with money or you come here to employ people, people who are way, contributing way more than they are as a regular citizen here, a natural born citizen.
Mm-hmm.
So, we got a lot of people here. I think we got too many people here. I think, things like, rent and all that kind of stuff is way too high for, 90% of everybody. Housing is through the roof. So we got too many people here. And I want to really take care of natural born citizens first. And when we get to the point where they're taken care of, they have an easier life, great. I would put a total hold on migration for at this point 5 or 10 years, because we need to catch up with home building and all that kind of stuff. And at the same time, I work in construction trades. I do that kind of stuff, and there are a lot of people that when I hire people, the contractors they send over, people from Ecuador, from all these, I'm getting, for their IDs so I can see who they are. I'm getting passports. I'm not getting IDs. They
now,
are
are these people coming over on work visas, or are they people that are trying to move here and seek asylum and such?
I really don't know, honestly. So it's, but I will say that, these people are making the same or maybe $1 or $2 more an hour than the guy at McDonald's, and they come here and they bust their ass and all that kind of stuff. And while that's, I might appreciate that, at the same time, it creates a environment where the construction trades for, people who are, natural born citizens, it's no longer a livable wage anymore. And, we're pushing wages down by, this increase of, people who are either illegal or born, in a foreign place who, look at, living in a crappy apartment in America is better than the, living outside in a shack wherever they were. I mean, this is, this is a better country and stuff like that. And, it would be nice if we have that for every single person, but we don't. And, I really look at, I care more about the poorest 51% of Americans than pretty much anything. And that idea really, permeates how I look at a lot of things in life, is that I want the poorest of us to, have a lifestyle that's good. And, population wise, I mean, again, I think it's a pretty easy thing to see, supply and demand here, where, if we had 10% less people or 20% less people here in the United States, that we'd have, rents would become more affordable for people, just, more supply, less demand. I think the, relieving demand on jobs and relieving demand on rents is going to help more people. And I don't really see how bringing in more and more people into that is, because they're not coming with a house. They're not, they're needing to rent, they're needing to live. And so that's why I hate, I hate that it sounds like I'm being, xenophobic or something like that. But I think a lot of this, having a somewhat, anti-immigration view, gets spun into some sort of bigotry or racism or anything like that. And I mean, I could promise you, if it was, we had millions of Swedish people coming over, every year, who were undercutting wages, who were, causing rents to rise, those types of things, that, I wouldn't be for that either. I mean, I'm it's literally just the, how does immigration impact, the poorest of us? And, we used to have, good jobs here, as far as like construction, manufacturing, all that kind of stuff. And, part of the problem of, the 40, 50 years of remittances to Mexico is that we've developed their society so much that they're taking jobs away, and are able to take jobs away. They're able to, build automotive plants and all that kind of stuff in Mexico now. I mean, it's well more than 1 million people in Mexico are, pretty much supporting the, automotive industry of North America, which used to be, the United States's, bread and butter. And, so I'm not, I'm against remittances totally. For a lot of reasons, whether it causes some sort of inflation, or the fact that I just don't like essentially spotting our trade competitors free money. I think that we should probably put an end to that to some degree because, yeah,
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, yeah, and it's tricky because we definitely rely on grocery stores for food. We rely on jobs for being able to, you know, clothe ourselves, have food, and have a place to stay. And it's complicated because prices change. And I don't have a strong understanding of any of those things and how prices change for housing or food or anything like that. But it has such a big effect on our lives that it is important if immigration is affecting that. So here's my question for you, though. You might have some knowledge on this. I hear a lot of people say that the birth rates are low and that we need more people and that it's better for the economy if we have more and more people being born. I don't know if that's because they need to slowly come into the economy versus adults coming over from other countries. I don't know. But people seem to be torn on the idea of some people think we're heavily overpopulated, which I think is usually a left leaning stance, but it doesn't matter what labels we put on it. But then some people think we're underpopulated and that the more people you have, the more innovation there is, the more Elon Musk's and Einstein's we get, the more people we have. So what are your thoughts on that and how that affects what you're saying about needing maybe 10% less people?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily would say that we need 10% less people, unless, if we had 10% more housing. If we, we're making sure that, people who worked at McDonald's 40 hours a week were, able to live in some sort of an apartment, some sort of crappy little place or whatever. The argument that having more people is, it generates more tax. I mean, so I can look at it from that. I mean, we're in a world where we compete with China and, a lot of places where, having more tax money, having more people that can work in some sort of industry and, having, out of every 1,000 kids that's born, you're going to have some super genius that, helps industry. I mean, yeah, more people obviously makes a higher opportunity or chance of, having one of these Elon Musks, so I mean, it's not hard to argue that, more people doesn't create more taxes, doesn't create more stuff. I mean, obviously it does. And if we really care about like competing in this world against others and other economies and stuff like that, then yeah, having more people, just an endless supply, having the most amount of people, and there would be no cap on that. I mean, it's the lifestyle might go down for a lot of people, but our government's going to be collecting more tax, and that's just a baseline. I think that's real easy, but I don't think that that's a great idea to have. Like, we need to have more people just to have more people, just to create more geniuses, to create higher tax base, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, yeah, we have falling birth rates here in the West. I mean, that's just that's going to happen. I mean, I think as women become more and more educated, birth rates are going to go down. I mean, I think that's the common denominator all across the world is women are more educated, they have less kids, so I don't necessarily think that we should maybe we should have I don't know, if our lifestyle and everything like that was cheaper, if we could, if a man could go to work and he could provide for a wife and she could have a couple kids and everybody could stay home and it was easy like that, birth rates might go back up, and I think that, for a 20-year-old, I couldn't imagine having a kid right now, as expensive everything is, unless I live in Seattle, but I mean, my gosh, you got to make, 100 plus a year to just live somewhat comfortably, and we're not even talking about buying a house even, it's just so the world's too expensive. I want to lower that. I think birth rates is going down because of how expensive it is. It might be going down because we're becoming more selfish or whatever, but as women become more educated and things get more expensive, we're gonna lose, the birth rate's just going to go down. And so I don't really know the best way to fix that, other than, I can say that, stopping migration, stopping the number of people. I want to relieve some demand on the system. So if
Hmm.
either we add more supply or we lower demand, so it's got to be one or the other. And lowering demand looks to me a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a question on that, but before I ask that, I want to ask you a question somebody has from the chat over here. So if do you feel the same way state to state, or is it more of a country thing? So you're in Washington. So if Californians were coming to Washington to work and then go back, is that something you would see a problem with? That you would say if you want to work here, move here, or do you have different thoughts on state to state versus countries?
Yeah, no, state to state, I actually, I believe that you should probably like live here and work here. And I know that
Okay.
that may rub people a little bit the wrong way, but I do look at, you know, as an adult, I've kind of figured out, I used to think a long time ago that, if you're an American, you're an American, everybody in America should have the exact same rules, should have the same rights, should have the same everything like that. And then, I've kind of understood that, there are quite a few states' rights that we need to that we do respect, that we look at and stuff like that. So I know people who have gotten rich going up to North Dakota, working the oil fields for a decade, and then leaving and stuff like that to go build a mansion in Alabama or whatever. And
Mm,
so I mean, it's I don't have a huge problem with Californians coming up to Seattle to work and saving up that money or sending it home and all that kind of stuff. It's not a huge issue. It could become a huge issue, but it's so far not. The main thing with sending, I also don't look at it as California as our trade competitors here in Seattle. So I clearly think, places like China or India or Mexico or even Canada, these are our trade competitors, and we should not be, spotting them free points in, the game that we're all playing. It's
mm,
and it's dealing with the currency. Pretty much that's. I try not to be a tribalist in life, but the one bit is like if you are participating in the same economy using the same currency as me, then I want to. That's who I care about, because I care about their purchasing power, which impacts my purchasing power. I don't want the currency that I use to value my time to be worth less and less. So
mm.
that's my bit of tribalism. And I, an anecdote here is I smoke pot, and I am very glad that the states control that industry, because we have crazy cheap pot up here, because we're overproducing. We got too much supply, don't have that demand. Where a place like in Nevada, while it's still legal, you still have such a higher demand for that than the supply, to where prices are not crazy low like they are here. And so it's there are some state rules and state laws that I appreciate. And as like this abortion topic, I think that maybe everybody should be able to choose a little bit more, on a state by state level, or a local city by city level, almost, what they want to do. Because I do like democracy and all that kind of stuff. And while yeah, that's I guess where I'm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I got a couple more questions for you on this topic, but somebody in chat is wondering if you label yourself a consequentialist.
I'd have to look up their definition of it. So
Gotcha. Okay. And then okay, so a couple things. So I'm curious how many things involving immigration are affecting your stance on the topic. So let's say that everything was fine with the economy. Let's let's say that we're not worried about immigration affecting housing or cost of food and things like that. Do you have any other big concerns with immigration, and do you view it differently from what you can see of where people are immigrating from?
well, I mean, I somewhat. I mean, I definitely see that there's different wants for assimilation, amongst different types of people. I've worked in places that are like mostly Chinese, and they come here, and within a year or two, their English is on point. Their embrace of society and America as it is it's very quick. They care about it and all that kind of stuff. Where certain other places certainly don't. They don't really care to learn the language as much as they probably should for employment, which is another kind of topic with immigration. When it comes to, it's like if somebody comes up here from a country and they don't learn the language and they don't assimilate, they're going to be at the mercy of an employer who is going to know that this guy is very limited in his working options, and that this is why you can get a painter or a carpenter for just about the same cost you can a McDonald's employee if the guy doesn't speak English. If he and it's a I don't know. So it's not great that way. I mean, I wish it was different, but not assimilating means people are not going to be not going to have the leverage when they're at work to make a livable wage like they should. And so I do care about where people come from. Again, H-1B and EB-5s are real, like they're skilled workers, that kind of thing. This is what I would prefer most people to come over here when we're talking about immigration. Knowing the language is another big one. Doesn't have to be on point, but we're at I grew up in Texas where there's cities down there where there's not even English anywhere but the streets. It's all the businesses, all the billboards, all that kind of stuff, they're all in Spanish. And it starts to feel a little bit like a different country. And I'm not a big fan of that. So I guess I care more about the type of immigrants that we get, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I want to push back on that. I don't disagree with you, but I like to come up with challenges. I like to steelman everything. What if it became very popular amongst English speaking people to like come up with some like created separate language, kind of like a Pig Latin type thing? And then because that became popular, all of a sudden we were having like this self-made, like let's say all the youngsters, all the Zoomers were made this like new language or whatever. But because that became so popular, there were a bunch of like billboards and stuff that had this like fake language or whatever. Would it matter where it came from if the amount of people doing it made it reasonable to put it on a billboard?
I mean, they can do that. I mean, we've had, what is it? People came up with Esperanto or whatever, decades ago, trying to, create a new language. There are, people use slangs here all the time. And, they're I'm sure that glizzy and silly little words like that the kids are using now, they're going to be on billboards and stuff like that. But, that stuff comes and goes. Kids are not going to be using the same slang for, a decade more, or, because I mean, I grew up that way where we certainly had a lot of slang, and, there's not a lot of people using terms like rad and, things like that from my childhood. So, I mean, if it's generated from here, that's fine. I don't really care. Again, they would probably suffer in the workforce if they, were trying to go to an interview and the guy was, knew that this person couldn't speak any sort of English, and again was then therefore leveraging that kid's inability to speak professionally or in the workforce, and just go dig that ditch, just go paint over there or something like that. So I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't care if it's all self-generated. I've got kids, they
Yeah.
come up with a bunch of stupid stuff, but in 5 years, nobody's going to use the word glizzy because it's already a worn out, bit of slang that, now the older kids used or something like that.
For sure. I don't know if this is a thing talked about with immigration, but do you think that we should treat criminals who are in the process of immigrating here should we treat them differently than we treat our own criminals? So, like, if somebody wanted to move here, they come over and they're waiting for their court dates and all the different things, and they're currently living here, but they're not legal citizens. Let's say one comes from China, one comes from Canada, one comes from Mexico or whatever. Like it doesn't matter where they're from, and one of them like steals a car, and then there's like a police chase, and they're running away from the police, and then they get caught. Um, should something like that, where if it was a U.S. citizen, we wouldn't say you're out of here, you got to go live in Canada or something now. If it was somebody trying to move here, or maybe they just had become a citizen, would we have some stipulations where we'd say like, we're making you a citizen, you're an official citizen, but if you commit this many crimes because you weren't born here, you would be kicked out. Again, I don't even know if this is talked about, and it makes sense in my mind either direction. So,
Well, like I've got a pal with a DUI. He can't go to Canada, so
mhm.
as far as and there are people who all around the world live. They if they do try to immigrate here, they are on a wait list for 10 years. They're perfectly clean record. Their schooling is so much better than average. These are the types of people that I think that we should have, and you know. Uh, having considering how strict it is for a lot of people to immigrate here legally, I think that we should someone should be pretty clean to be here. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at immigration as if I was going to another country, I wouldn't go there to go buy real estate in order to increase the prices for everybody who's normally living there. I'm a visitor. I mean, I can be a long-term visitor. I can move there when I'm 18 years old and live there the rest of my life, but I'm still a visitor. I mean, I can be a
Hmm.
citizen to some degree that's helping everything, but I would yeah, I mean, there's very few laws or very few crimes that I would say should be able to keep somebody here who's visiting.
Hmm.
If I went to, I imagine if I went to some other country and I had a DUI or got drunk and caused a fight or something like that. I mean, I am I'm not a good visitor anymore. I'm not somebody who should be here
Yeah.
anymore. So
Yeah, no, I agree, and I wasn't sure if that's a thing that is discussed much on the topic, but yeah, I definitely think if we have room for X amount of people, and then double that amount of people want to come in, then maybe the first thing we look to is criminal status in the waiting period, essentially. I don't know once they're already a citizen if there should be some like a stipulation, kind of like if you get a job and you have like a 90-day period of seeing if you're good for the job, and then maybe you got to go. And so maybe there should be a period of time. I would say once somebody's been a citizen for a certain amount of time, 5 or 10 years, then they'd be treated like everyone else. Like the crime side of things doesn't matter. But if somebody becomes an official citizen and they've only been here like 6 months and they go and rape somebody or something, I'm thinking even get in the boot.
yeah, no,
um,
I'm just this somebody who's lived here for 5 or 10 years. I still look at them as a visitor to some degree, or a limited citizen. I don't really care how we want to define or categorize it so much. It's they are you know not a citizen in every single right. Like I if you came here from another country, I don't think you should be able to vote. And I know
mm,
that sounds maybe a little bit harsh or something like that, but I think with our the way that our constitution probably should have been written. I mean, we're trying to keep foreign influence from changing laws, changing how this country works. And so saying if we had one Russian come over here, he shouldn't be we might be okay with him voting because he's not going to impact a lot of stuff. But if we had a million, we had 10 million or 20 million, yeah, no, the way that they vote is going to start impacting it. So it's
mm.
I would still, if somebody had a DUI here, if somebody had a domestic violence situation, just about anything, I would want to deport them because one, I we don't live in a society where everything is just so cheap, and everybody's demand on housing and food and all that kind of stuff is doesn't impact everybody else. So we are
Hmm.
having to make room in a sense for that. And so I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of sympathy for people who commit crimes and as a visitor. I mean, I'm not, again, I wouldn't want to go to Japan and go act like a jackass and say, you know it, not have some sort of consequence for it.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, no, and I completely agree. I might have misheard it, but did you say that if we make somebody an official citizen, they shouldn't be able to vote for a certain amount of years?
I mean, I truly believe that natural born citizens should be the only ones voting, maybe the only ones owning a
Mm.
gun, the only ones buying property for sure.
Ooh.
um,
Whoa, 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 whoa! Gotta
the
pause you
gun
on the. I gotta
the
pause you on the
gun
gun.
right.
I'm with you. I'm with you on the maybe at first. I'm with you on if there's a criminal issue, but also I think they should just be deported if there's a criminal issue. But if there is a 30-year-old person moving here from any country, doesn't matter, um, and they're living here and they might need to protect themselves, I think they should be able to have a gun if they have no history of criminal history.
Yeah, and I hear you. Look, we live in a like I would love to live in a world where we didn't even have guns. I mean, I'm a gun owner myself. I have a gun for protection, especially now that I have kids. I get it. I mean, there's a we live in a world with more guns now, or in a country with more guns now than we have citizens, and people who are foreign born or whatever, they're going to need to have a gun in the same situation as us. But again, I look at maybe the how maybe the Constitution and everything viewed foreigners coming over here. I don't want to have 10 million Russians coming over here, and then and they're all armed, and then they
Hmm.
choose to do something of that. So I mean, you know, I I I get it. I get what you're saying 100%. And but at the same time, I'm of the if we're giving somebody a citizenship, I would prefer it to be a limited citizenship. I
Hmm.
still look at it as totally you are a visitor, and you are
Okay.
always going to be a visitor, and it's never, even I have friends that came here as kids, and they are contributing so much to society. They have all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, I don't want to make an exception for these incredible individuals. I'm trying to kind of like the abortion. It's a hard idea, but I want to make a compromise where people are coming here and they're respecting that they're a visitor, that they're respecting that
Hmm.
if they're trying to assimilate, that they need to assimilate. If they're trying to get into the workforce, they don't need to show up with such limited skills or language that an employer takes advantage of that, and therefore then pushes wages down
Hmm.
to unlivable for a lot of these industries. So
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I can see it. I might have jumped the gun on the defensiveness on the gun thing.
no, I 100%
But
get you. I've heard that same pushback a lot. I know I'm a little bit too strict almost on
But no,
how
you
this
you
is.
make a good point. I mean, it is a visitor. It's somebody choosing to come here, and if the law was that they had to be a citizen for 5 years before they could legally buy a gun in the country, then when they decide to come here versus wherever they are at, that's part of their decision. Yeah, I don't think that's horrible. Okay, so now for the last chunk of this, at least for today's talk on the immigration thing, I think this is an important topic that there's probably a lot to go into. But with deportation, um, I start having like concerns when it comes to people that have maybe been here a while, or maybe they've had children with people that are citizens, where you would have the kid would stay here because they were born here, but then their parent would have to go. If you were going to be in charge of deporting people, what would that look like today?
Well, I would, anybody here who's illegally, I would be definitely, rerunning them through the asylum process or, immigration process. And I probably wouldn't be keeping them on our soil in the same thing. I wouldn't like, you've been here, work, illegally for however long a time. I, I don't know that, just letting them, sit and work and all that kind of stuff. And it's a tough one because, people got families, people have to, survive and stuff like that. But at the same time, you know, I don't think that we have the room for everybody that's coming in. And, certainly the wage depression, rents, all that kind of stuff really for me impacted. Because again, I don't care so much about the rich people. I care about the poor people. And, I want the poorest in our country to be able to, to rent and all that kind of stuff and live somewhat well. And the deportation, I don't know. I mean, it seems for me it'd be a lot easier than what a lot of people make it out to be. I mean, I grew up in Texas where, there's a lot of kids that just dream of becoming border patrol. I mean, there's a lot of people who want to, have no problem getting rid of people who are, here illegally. And, I mean, I think there's a joke that, you could go down to Home Depot with a unmarked white van and guys will just get in the back and he's driving by ice and it'd be, that easy. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I don't, yeah. I mean, I would probably just start deporting people who, would start with criminals first, but then, I would probably just cut off the borders, deport the criminals first, then start deporting people who were here illegally that didn't have kids and, or ones that, I would make an exception if you are, if a natural born citizen has a foreign born wife and they have a kid that was born here. I don't think that person should ever probably be up for deportation. I mean, it's, and simply because, maybe it's, my heartstrings are getting pulled in that. I wouldn't want a kid being, have his mom taken away from him or dad taken away from him or something like that. Especially, if, as far as, earning a lifestyle for them and all that kind of stuff is obviously needed. But, you're foreign born, you're 20 something, you don't have kids, which sure seems to be like a big chunk of who we're getting, as far as migrants right now. And eventually, we're going to have to, if you're a family that's foreign born that came here all illegally, they're probably going to have to leave too. I mean, it's, I don't know.
Well, when it comes to allowing a select number of people in, let's say that there was the economy was better and there's room to let people legally become citizens, do you care more about somebody that is seeking asylum in a true way, or more about somebody that just wants to be here and has the merit for it? So let's say that somebody we like, it satisfies your take on seeking asylum. So there's good reason for them to be here for protection, but they're not criminals, but there's no merit to show that they're necessarily going to add anything to the country. And then you have somebody that went to college in, let's say, Mexico. They very intelligent. They're likely to do a lot of good things in STEM fields in the U.S. or whatever. Do you care more about one than the other?
I mean, yeah, for sure. And, one, I have a bit of an issue with when we're talking about asylum, because it's a fact that, I mean, my gosh, pretty much I got to think 99% of everybody who's an immigrant or who migrates here is going to come from a poorer society. They're going to come where it's a lot harder. They're probably living in poverty. I mean, I get it. I mean, this is a reality. So, I mean, is poverty a reasonable reason to seek asylum somewhere? Poverty sucks. I mean, poverty is it creates death. Kids starve to death. All these kinds of things happen. So, for me, like, I would have a really, really hard time, coming up with a good reason for asylum cases. I mean, obviously, if we're talking about some woman who is, in the society who's just being brutally raped, and it just, you know, it, yeah, no, it's this place isn't going to be. Their home country's not going to be good. If you're a gay individual living in, the Middle East or something like that, where there's laws to actually just kill you, they probably deserve. They probably, for me, achieve the, bar of what asylum seekers should be. But as far as
Mm-hmm.
economics, eh, it's if the bar is economics, then I mean that's who isn't economically challenged in that way. I mean, there are,
Mm-hmm.
I know a guy who is, came over from Nigeria, just genius guy. He's in that top 0.001% over there. Went to college, came over here, went to Ivy Leagues. He's an incredible, person and stuff like that. But he was able to migrate here through some sort of deal that we have, letting them come over here. But should he be able to get asylum? I mean, he lives in a country that's got considerable more poverty, and even if becomes a doctor or he becomes something over there, he's still going to have a much better life over here, and he may not have to deal with the threat of violence or the government cutting off the electricity or something to that effect. So I would like it, again, like I said, EB-5, HB-1, these types of programs that are, either highly skilled workers or they come here with money. These are the types of people that obviously should be coming here first, if we're having
Mm-hmm.
anybody. But at the same time, I don't think it's a great, I mean, they would certainly come here and enrich our country. I might wish that they would do it over there. And if, you want these other places to rise up on their own, not having a brain drain, of their own population would probably be a good idea.
Mm.
But, if you're coming here to dig ditches and stuff like that, I promise we got enough of that at this point. So.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, yeah, it's good to hear. There's a lot there that I hadn't heard before, and it's definitely a topic I'm interested in, but I don't know much about. So I like delving into things like that. I do got to hop off here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great talk, and hopefully we'll have another one sometime.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was super fun. And, I like dealing with hard topics. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
All right. Take care, my friend. I'll talk to
Yeah,
you
have a
later.
good one. Bye.
Bye.